You're live.
Hello.
Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. I'm here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I am joined by my better than your co-host Glory Jones and Ali Alexandra. What's happening, y'all?
Good morning.
I am really excited today. By the way, welcome to everyone listening to us on Aftermath and iHeartRadio and on everywhere where we broadcast. We are joined this morning by the attorney Ty Clevenger. You have, first of all, welcome to the show, and I am really looking forward to this conversation. I have been following your blog for a number of years now. We all of us really, but Josh, Glory, and I specifically have been working alongside like free speech activism, Julian Assange activism, been very, very closely connected to WikiLeaks and the cases around that. So this the Seth Rich assassination, something that has been like very, very important to all of us. And I can't believe it dawned on me this morning. It's been almost 5 years since this young man was assassinated. So if you could please, Ty, tell us how you kind of got brought into all of this. And we'll go from there because everything about this is fascinating.
Well, actually, it's all my little brother's fault. He was following this story and kept telling me, hey, you got to take a look at this. You got to take a look at this. And I kind of dread it when he says that because he's always right. And so I served a Freedom of Information Act request on the Justice Department about matters pertaining to Seth Rich. Of course, FBI as well, asked them for records. And the FBI came back and said, we got nothing. They said, we searched our records and found nothing about Seth Rich. And this was when they gave me that affidavit, I think it was 2018. I had to sue them first. You always have to sue the FBI because they're not going to do it voluntarily. So I sued them in Brooklyn. And in 2018, they gave me this affidavit saying we got nothing. And of course, I've been blogging about that, as you know. And in the course of that, Ed Butowsky here in Texas reached out to me because he was battling some of the same forces. And so I started representing Ed. And Ed's never really taken a position on who killed Seth Rich. Ed's only position was he was involved in the leaks. But this is one of those stories where, God forbid you question the official narrative or you're going to be crushed. And so there was multiple attempts to sue him into oblivion. Matt Couch, who's also had a lot to say about some of this stuff, he got sued. I think that's an interesting part of the story. The Washington Times got sued. And I think we're seeing that now as a pattern. I can't help but notice the similarities to what's going on with Dominion right now. And I don't have any inside knowledge on what did or didn't happen. It's just like this organized campaign to sue people into silence. That's exactly what happened with Seth Rich story.
Lawfare.
Right. It's lawfare. Exactly. And so right now I've got some more FOIA cases pending. The court in Brooklyn, where I live, threw out my original FOIA case, took the FBI at face value that, they've got nothing. And documents later leaked out that they did, in fact, of course, have records about Seth Rich. Sued him again here in Texas on behalf of a different client. And they were forced a few months ago to admit not only do they have thousands of pages of documents about Seth Rich, they have not only his personal laptop, they have his work laptop. And the people on Twitter sphere have been saying, maybe they didn't have it at the time. And so the FBI wasn't lying to you. They got the information later. Well, now we know that's not true because I've got documents from the FBI dating back to September of 2016, which is like 2.5 months after his death.
Yeah.
Where the FBI is interviewing witnesses about Seth Rich. And so there is now no question that the FBI lied to me and lied through its teeth. And so that's the battle right now. They've withheld most of the documents. Like they're supposed to produce 500 documents a month. I may get 50 out of 500, and then those 50 are heavily redacted. So it's just an ongoing battle.
We've been referring to this as the most heavily redacted armed
Botched robbery
in history. When
Exactly.
you go through the FOIAs, and you put them, put links up to them every time that you get access to them. There's a link to them on your blog. We'll make sure that we have links to that in the description for everything. I've always encouraged people to go check out your site there and see it for themselves, because again, like, you don't have to believe anything that we say. We source everything that we say, so you can go and look it up on your own time yourselves, and I encourage everyone to do that. And it's lawflog.org, right?
Lawflog.com.
Okay, lawflog.com, lawflog.com. Go and see for yourself the amount of redactions. It is crazy. Ridiculous.
If you're okay with looking at a bunch of black rectangles, then I recommend going through all of it. But I mean, it's right. The fact that there is such a lack of transparency going into this investigation and scrambling to hide like all these witness testimonies and scrambling to hide everything about this case, it kind of shows you that there's more to it than what meets the eye. And I mean, at the very least, we should be demanding a full and transparent investigation into the assassination of Seth Rich. Like, if you really want to dispel all of the, Seth Rich conspiracy theories, then you should be first in line, on the front line, demanding a full and transparent investigation for this, because that's not what's going on right now.
And speaking of conspiracy theories, how about that Wuhan lab conspiracy theory? I saw somebody on Twitter say that what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and a fact, and the answer is about 6 to 12 months.
I put that up. I did. I saw that as well. I was like, because we've been talking about this. Our good friend Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond, we've been like demonetized, in his case, deplatformed, removed from sites entirely, not because of anything they necessarily put on Patreon, but because there was a Patreon link on an article that was written, and Patreon was claiming that that was their content. But we've been kind of joking now that it's a tinfoil hat conspiracy until enough time has passed that it's safe to report on it. And then it's just the way that things have always been. And there's absolutely no, there's no acknowledgement that people were right early and paid a significant price for it. And I think that, you have certainly felt the brunt for being right early on this. I'm sure that you've been.
Actually, I've had it pretty easy.
Have you? Oh, good.
Yeah, the people who have gotten it really badly are Ed Butowsky, Bat Couch. They're the ones that got sued. Both of them had serious health problems, life-threatening health problems, just from being dragged through the ringer. Ed had a heart attack last summer and nearly died. Actually, was clinically dead for 10 minutes. If you've never been involved in litigation, you don't understand how stressful that can be, and it was for both of them.
When I first met Jared Beck, he did not have a single strand of gray on him, and from the time they filed the DNC fraud suit until now,
right?
Like it's almost like he was like, "I'll screw it, I'll just die it," But no, I mean that it ages you significantly. It stresses you out to no end, and I know that at least in Ed's case, the amount of subpoenas that have been issued as a result of that, because the complaint itself, it's one of the most fascinating pieces of reading that I've done in a while. And our friend Ray McGovern named in it. He broke that news on a show that we were doing. What the work that Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity has been able to produce around not just the DNC leaks, but the Podesta emails and that everything surrounding that, plus Bill's excellent work around the election. Like I don't understand. I do understand, but I'm putting it out facetiously. I don't understand why these gentlemen aren't held to a higher standard in terms of like where our reporting is going and where our news institutions are turning to for information, because it's not like VIPS isn't packed with the most credible, knowledgeable sources that we really have access to in the private sector. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and at one time that was acknowledged. I mean, when those guys were questioning what the right was doing, then the corporate media were all over that. When they were, questioning things about Iraq, for example, then the corporate media was all over that. But now that they have the audacity to be even-handed and question things that went on during the Obama administration, then all of a sudden, they're the bad guys. They're not credible. I think it's interesting, the word post-ideological gets thrown around, I think, a little too loosely, but it is an interesting kind of horseshoe convergence now between left and right, that are kind of simultaneously realizing, wait a minute, there's something way wrong going on. Just the level of corporate information control, misinformation put out by the government.
What I'm seeing, at least from where I sit, is sort of a coming together, not necessarily like along that horseshoe, but if you quadranted out the political compass, where you've got the authoritarian spectrum, the more libertarian spectrum, we're starting to see more unity and cohesion along that entire bottom half.
True.
Where it's not necessarily post-ideology, like the ideologies remain. It's the partisanship that is really kind of being shed, and it's now being looked at more in terms of, we would like some liberty, we would like some agency, we would rather not have the state's hand involved in everything. We can determine policy after we gain the agency. Let's do the agency first, and then we'll work on policy. Whereas on the more authoritarian side, it's 100% about control, maintaining possession of the narrative above all else, and consequences be damned.
Well, 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, I've got an audio problem here. When I first started out as a journalist, I was in a minority because at the time I was more conservative than libertarian, and almost everybody else I worked with was liberal. And of course, the press was bent somewhat liberal, but there was an understanding that there are certain lines you just don't cross. And I think that is gone.
Oh yeah, it's gone.
I mean, what happened with this New York Post story about Hunter Biden? And they were 100% right, spot on right. And everybody turned on him and treated him like pariahs. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime.
That was stunning. It was like it didn't happen. They just completely discredited it. They tried with the New York Post. And I mean, sure, you could say what you want about the New York Post, but they've been around for a while. So, I mean,
oldest daily newspaper in the United States.
Exactly.
Alexander Hamilton.
Random tabloid. Right. Alexander Hamilton. So I was pretty stunned to see just how far people went to completely discredit that story and that publication in general.
But there was credible information that the president-elect's son was not just a pedophile, but an incestual pedophile.
Yeah.
And that the president-elect not just had knowledge of this, but was helping him avoid ever facing any responsibility for it. And the entire establishment media went, yeah, we know, but you're not supposed to see that.
Yeah, we'll just brush that aside.
we're going to do everything we can to discredit the source in the New York Post, and we're going to say this is basically like a Rupert Murdoch outlet.
Yep.
We're not going to have it.
Well, I knew some of the guys behind the scenes that were trying to get that story out, and the New York Post is not the first place they went. New York Post is the only is just the publication that had the to run the story. But they were getting turned away. And of course, the FBI was turning them away. So,
yeah,
you know.
we know from Chelsea Manning that when she had collateral murder, the Iraq and Afghan war logs, Cablegate, and the Gitmo files, that she went to the Washington Post, New York Times, Politico, a couple other outlets, and again, no one would touch it.
right.
And when you have ostensible news outlets who brand themselves as the paragon of truth, democracy dies in darkness.
Don't forget it.
Forgive me while I laugh out loud.
It's hard to not laugh at that. It's a joke.
But who are actively saying, no, this story deserves to die because it paints our team in a bad light.
Right.
You know, that's beyond the pale to me. I would rather lose faith in my team than be kept from, knowing what happened, especially if it's somebody's life and you can point to the responsible parties. Or through investigation, find the responsible parties. That's what's supposed to happen in this. And in the case of Seth Rich specifically, we've got multiple, I guess, jurisdictional and party-specific political figures who have made it their mission to bury this.
Yes. I mean, you mentioned lawfare earlier. There's a book to be written about just how it worked in this case, the coordination between giant law firms. These are not just some random lawyer on a crusade. These are the big white shoe law firms in DC that represent major corporations, and they just suddenly decide pro bono they're going to represent Seth's brother and represent his parents to sue the ever living daylights out of anybody that dares to question the official narrative. I mean, that's not an accident. This stuff is coordinated, and unfortunately, people on the libertarian side of things we don't have that. Even in the quote unquote Republican firms in DC, they're completely bought out, beholden to corporate interests because that's where their payday comes from. And so, what can you point to? Like the Democrats have Perkins Coie. What can you point to on the libertarian side that has those kind of resources?
Right.
It's just not there.
That's a great point. I don't think enough people think about that aspect of the entire issue. It's interesting.
Well, in the libertarian, as a political institution, the Libertarian Party is woefully underfunded for the amount of money that is represented in its constituency. John McAfee himself could have bought the Libertarian Party into being a major player. Not that I'm faulting him for living life on the pirate yacht, because hey, aspirations, I want a pirate yacht. I do. But I mean the resources are just overwhelmingly in favor of authoritarian structures in general. I don't know how much detail can you go into, where is this right now? Where's the Butowsky thing right now? Where's are you still filing FOIAs? Is this thing ever going to see a courtroom again?
Yeah, great questions. We are filing FOIAs. We're litigating those right now. In fact, something that is very, very rarely litigated, that will soon be litigated prodigiously, if that's the word, is this executive order that says you cannot use classification for the purpose of concealing government misconduct. And so they've used that not a lot, but some in the Seth Rich case. More glaringly, though, they have used that in response to some FOIAs that I submitted about sort of surveillance of journalists, and specifically for Cheryl Atkinson. And I've been cooperating with her. She gave me an authorization for the government to release anything that they have surveilled and taken in on her. And so I served that not just on the FBI, but the NSA and the CIA. And they've come back with what's called a GLOMAR response, which means we can neither confirm nor deny, because to do so might reveal classified information. Well, guess what? It's illegal for the CIA to domestically spy on U.S. citizens. And so we're going to argue that this executive order applies. You're using classification to cover up government misconduct. So that's one angle that we're going to be litigating. But back to Seth Rich and Ed Butowsky, they were basically Ed and Matt were basically coerced into settling this thing, and they can't really talk about any of this stuff. I can, and I do. And so since I can, let me say this: Fox News is the bottom of the barrel as far as I'm concerned, because Fox News has sold out so many people on this story, including their own people. They shafted Malia Zimmerman. Once they settled everything, they cut her loose, fired her. Fox knows what happened. And because of this internal battle between Rupert as the older, more conservative one, and 3 of his 4 kids who are more liberal, they wanted to appease the establishment left, and so basically just burned their own people. But the evidence is still out there, and one way or another, we're going to get it. It's some of it actually is under seal. I can't talk about it, but for example, in Ed's case, we got into some documents that I think need to be made public, desperately need to be made public. But typical lawfare tactics: they sue you into submission, they break you financially, and then they basically force you into settling and accepting a protective order. But the information is out there, and when one way or another, it is going to come out. You asked about other litigation with Ed. Thanks to Fox and thanks to the lawfare, we had to settle everything that Ed was involved in. Fortunately, that does not apply to slander and defamation that occurs after the settlement was entered into. And so, for example, I recently sent a demand letter to CNN for a retraction because they slandered Ed again. And we're planning to use that as an opportunity to reopen this and say, okay, you're calling him a conspiracy theorist. You're accusing him of spreading false information. Here we go again. You're going to get sued again. And we're going to litigate this.
Well, and if the slander is this person is a conspiracy peddling lunatic, then where is the evidence that that proves that?
Right.
If you're putting this accusation on this person, if you're labeling this person this thing, then why can't you produce any material that would satisfy the objections that he and many, many other people have reasonably and rationally raised? Why is it the most heavily redacted botched robbery in human history?
Well, there's a couple of phrases that have become popular with CNN and Washington Post and a lot of corporate media, and that is without real evidence. That's the one that the CNN used in its story. And so my question would that be, well, okay, when Julian Assange basically says that he got the information from Seth Rich, that's not real evidence. And so they're accusing Ed of spreading a conspiracy theory without real evidence. Well, no, there was evidence. Now, you may disbelieve the evidence and you may say it's not credible evidence, but there was evidence. And that was only the tip of the iceberg. So that's kind of the angle that we're going to go after them on, is you're saying that there's no evidence. Well, actually, there is evidence.
And I don't know if we played this clip in a while, but I'm gonna play that clip here real quick, because this is, I believe, this is what you're talking about.
Yes, right.
weeks. Look at polls, he needs a miracle. In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old, I worked for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
Pause it there for a second. Bring it back about 2-3 seconds right there.
I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
Let maybe a couple more seconds then.
To see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about?
So we can go around the room here real quick, and for everyone who is not watching this on video, the link to this clip will be in show notes, and you can watch that for yourself. But I mean, Ty?
Yeah, and basically beyond that part of the clip, he goes on and is even more explicit about Seth Rich. So it makes it very clear that he is pointing to Seth Rich as the source of at least some of these documents that they got from the DNC. And so, you know, it's not imaginary. You know, another thing I forgot to mention, Ty Hirsch, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, you know, uncovered the My Lai massacre. And he told Ed Butowsky in a recorded conversation that they had information that Seth was the source of the leaks, that they knew this, and that all of his sources inside the government were confirming it. Now, Ty Hirsch kind of weaseled out of that, and when he was called on it publicly, he initially denied it, and then the audio tape came out, and then he said, "Well, I was taken out of context, and I was just trying to play with Ed Butowsky and see what he knew." Well, guess what? This has largely been ignored by the media. He got deposed during the litigation between Aaron Rich and Ed Butowsky, and with great reluctance, he finally admitted under oath that, yeah, that was true. That's exactly what he was getting from his sources inside of the government, is that Seth was the source of the leaks. So, you know, but that begs the question. Here's Ty Hirsch, who throughout all of his life is not afraid to take on anybody, and now he's running scared. Mm-hmm. And I hope he hears that, and I hope it offends him, because it's true. He's running scared. And the question is what is big enough and bad enough to scare Ty Hirsch?
Yeah. And I mean, to go back to the Julian Assange clip really quick. I mean, God, first of all, I really miss his interviews. Second of all, yeah, I just miss like watching new interviews of him. But yeah, I mean, and people are going to point to that as part of the ongoing smear campaign against Julian, in that he's peddling Seth Rich conspiracy theories, not taking into account the fact that he runs an outlet that has a 100% accuracy rate. So when he gives these little like mannerisms and these interviews that kind of point to and indicate Seth Rich as the source, and more importantly, the fact that it was a leak, when he does that, we ought to trust him and use that as, you know, credible evidence in building this case as well. And I mean, another thing as well is I understand that we need to get to the bottom of what happened with the Seth Rich case, but don't ask like WikiLeaks what their source for drop is, or who like or who blew the whistle on that. I mean, that's just always something where it's like, one of the things that makes Julian and WikiLeaks so special is their commitment to protect their sources. And it's something, going back to that whole thing a couple months ago, where people were essentially saying that Trump would agree to pardon Julian if he disclosed the source of the DNC leaks, which was, first of all, probably a lie. Second of all, I mean, of course he's not going to do it, because that's the kind of integrity that he and an outlet like WikiLeaks has. So, yeah.
Well, I never saw
my little rant there.
I never saw anything convincing that wasn't just Dana Rohrabacher trying to get back into DC and trying to get back into the good graces of the party. I never saw any evidence that Trump himself directly communicated to Rohrabacher to put that deal on the table. But I mean, that's really neither here nor there on this. I mean, WikiLeaks put out a $20,000 reward for information leading to, the arrest of Seth Rich's murderers.
First time. And I think it's still the only time they've ever done anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, what do you think about the clip out? And we can play that next minute too, because he does go into some great detail and we can talk about it. But up to the first minute of that clip, Allie, I mean, what's your initial reaction to that? Because I don't know how long it's been since you've seen that clip. And you need to unmute, unless you're not there. And then we can go back to the clip. I don't know if I could. We'll do that then.
Something, before I forget, something I wanted to mention, Bill Binney and Larry C. Johnson have also written about another aspect of the hard evidence here. And they have shown that it was both technologically and physically impossible for this information to have been hacked from the DNC. So that rules out hack. That means your only other alternative is a leak.
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact kind of computer science jargon or all of that, but I know the thing that VIP's investigation found was that the download speeds of the emails were too fast to be obtained remotely or from a hack. They had to be downloaded onto a flash drive. So
file transfer,
right,
and download speed,
right.
Yeah.
Well, then there's that goes back to the whole classification thing. It's pretty easy to piece together some facts here. We know as recently as the last few months that Judge Boasberg in DC releases this order saying 16,000 Americans were improperly surveilled. Actually, what he said is that the FBI improperly went into the NSA database and pulled out information on these people. It's publicly known that the NSA is sucking up everything, and it's out there and it's available. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that whoever transmitted these files from the US to WikiLeaks, the NSA's got that information. And so I filed a FOIA for that and asked the NSA to produce all of it. And they've come back and given me the same Glomar response. Well, and this is going to come up in court, so I'll give you a preview. The problem they made is the NSA said they had moderate confidence that the Russians were responsible for hacking these things. And my argument to the court is going to be, no, you actually affirmatively knew that was not true, and you lied about it. And now you're trying to use classification to cover it up. So my hope is we can get a court to force them to cough up some of this information.
I mean, yeah, it would. We don't get to, I don't think we get to move forward at all. I don't think we get to address or deal with what our government is about to do to us until we can understand what they've already done.
Right.
And this goes, I mean, as far back as you would like it to, but realistically, from the assassination of JFK forward, there's been, in my opinion, a very clear delineation of three-letter agency control of every aspect of our government and media, and thereby most of how we get our information and process it. And if we can't get outside of that, if we can't step beyond it, we're going to forever be trapped into this, one party forever war, it's okay if we murder whistleblowers because we own the truth and we sell bits of it to you. And I refuse to, stand for any of that.
Well, we know, factually, historically, that J. Edgar Hoover had blackmail files on most of the people in Washington. How hard is it, to draw the line between that and the fact that now the NSA has sucked up every piece of information that's emailed, transmitted in the US or elsewhere, and they have it in a database and the FBI has access to it. So, I mean, draw the line. I mean, they potentially have the ability to blackmail judges, blackmail CEOs. They can blackmail whoever they want to. And in fact, one of my outstanding FOIA requests is for the identities of the 16,000 people whose files were illegally searched by the FBI. And of course, they're fighting me tooth and nail on that.
Can we talk about the Freedom of Information Act itself and the hurdles that the U.S. government puts in place to keep people from freely accessing information?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a soapbox issue of mine as an ex-journalist, especially. Yes. When I was a journalist, I used more of the state open records laws, and particularly in Texas, and they worked pretty well. Pretty good enforcement mechanism in place. It hardly ever happens, but there are criminal penalties if you violate the state open records law in Texas and in other states. Conversely, at the federal level, there's zero criminal penalties for deliberate violations. And worse than that, the agency that is charged with enforcing FOIA is the Office of Special Counsel, which is the group that's supposed to prosecute Hatch Act violations and occasionally does. But if you looked on their website, you would never know that part of their charge is to prosecute federal employees who violate FOIA. And so I served a FOIA on the Office of Special Counsel, and they admitted to me that in their entire history, they have no record of ever prosecuting a single federal employee for violating FOIA. So the federal employees know that there are literally zero consequences for violating FOIA. And that's what they do. I mean, even in this case in New York, where the FBI produced the false affidavit, I sent that to the Inspector General for DOJ and said, you've got a senior FBI official who committed perjury, not just in the court in New York, but they subsequently submitted the same false affidavit in Texas, even after they knew it was false, because I had showed them, here are the documents that the FBI already has, and they resubmitted the same false affidavit. Inspector General wouldn't touch it. He referred it back to the FBI for an internal investigation, yada, yada, yada. But nothing ever happens to these people. And so I can sue them all day long, and if I get a good judge, he can order them to turn the stuff over after, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of litigation. But the people who are cheating the American public and covering this stuff up, they feel no consequences for it. And God forbid that you're just a regular citizen or a regular journalist and you're not an attorney like me who could go into federal court and enforce it. Because if you can't take it to court, you're probably never going to get
it. Steve, you're muted.
Highlights the importance of whistleblowers and outlets like WikiLeaks, where you can go to a secure drop, with data that then an outlet that exists to protect you will then go through vet, verify, and publish with enough expediency to have an impact. Because way too often, because of exactly what you're talking about, Ty, the drawn out process of the Freedom of Information Act request, 2, 3, 5 years of litigation, the ability to publish on that information is subject to the same amount of time.
I'll give you an example. Judicial Watch has been litigating the Imran Iwan scandal for years and years now. And the information, and they've actually got a very favorable judge on that case. And still the information is just trickling out in tiny pieces because these guys know they can get away with it. Nothing's going to happen to them.
I got to be honest. I haven't thought about the Awan brothers in a couple of years now, to where we've reported on it, because it's dropped that far off the radar.
And that is exactly what. Yeah, it's intentional. Yeah, that was is a huge story. Part of the backstory to that is that there was a bipartisan effort to cover that thing up. Paul Ryan was up to his eyeballs in that mess, because you had,
and then disappeared from public life entirely.
Yes, right. But that thing, both parties wanted to cover that up because you had spies operating inside of Congress who had potential blackmail on all kinds of people, and it was easier to just wrap the whole thing up and give the Awans a slap on the wrist, and then try to cover it up and make it go away. But yeah, that's a huge story. But the news value, of course, deteriorates over time, and that's the goal. Is just wait these things out until nobody's paying attention anymore.
So I'm moving here in about a week and a half, but then once I get settled in, and once we get done covering the Julian Assange's father and brother-in-law are landed in the U.S. and are going to be doing like a month-long tour, raising. When we're done covering that, I am going to start the freaking show. I'm going to do a podcast called The Memory Hole, where we go through these stories that are and were huge that have just been buried, and we'll talk about why they got buried. But I mean, again, just to bring this stuff back to light, because that was an enormous story that should have had enormous impact.
I've got people who I totally trust, former intel people, telling me that the part of the other angle of this, of course I don't have direct knowledge, but this is what they're telling me, was that the Awans were serving as FBI assets at the same time that they were actually Pakistani ISI assets. And so according to this source, they were double agents. And it wasn't just Congress that didn't want to admit that they got burned. You also had the FBI that didn't want to admit that they got burned.
I mean, and that's fair, because who wants to admit that? But I mean, the Pakistani ISI, one of the most notorious intelligence services that exist, but the day before, 2 days before 9/11, Joe Biden meeting with the head of Pakistani ISI, who was found out to be like a bagman, delivered a bunch of money. The relationship that the U.S. has had with that particular intelligence service over the last several decades, as both friend and foe, in terms of how they can use each other and play each other, it's something else that should be looked at.
There's another interesting angle on this that needs to be explored, and I'm trying to, but I haven't gotten very far. And that is, think about this: if the Awan brothers are controlling the IT system for the Democratic National Committee, while Seth Rich is working for the Democratic National Committee, and it gets out that this kid that's working for the DNC leaked all this information right out from under your noses, well, there's going to be some kind of investigation into the IT systems at the DNC. And so the question I have is, did the ISI have an incentive to go after Seth Rich? Was the ISI worried that their people inside of the DNC were going to be exposed? I don't know the answer to that, but somebody needs to ask the question. I mean, it needs to be investigated. And to my knowledge, it never has been.
It's fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating.
Didn't even know about that angle of it, but yeah.
Well, in the introduction of CrowdStrike, and for them to take possession of, and to then only report on a 3% deliver an examination of 3% of the servers that was redacted up to like 98% of the content.
I worked for the DOJ very briefly, and it's the worst place I ever worked. But I can tell you that never in the history, to my knowledge, never in the history of DOJ has it or the FBI allowed a third party to conduct a computer crime investigation. It just doesn't happen. And so that was totally outside the norm, where they say, you know what, we're not going to look at the servers ourselves. You pick your investigator, and then they can tell us what their findings are. Doesn't happen. To my knowledge, it's the only time it's ever happened.
Yeah, I can't think of a time either. I can't. Out of all of the documents that you've received around Seth Rich, and I'm pretty sure you've reported on them yourself in your blog, but what are like 3 of the revelations that you could pull out of it that you wish got more airtime?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to know where to start on that list.
Awesome. I mean, you got time. You could.
Yeah, sure.
The floor is yours, Ty. You could. Yeah.
Well, so there's one angle on the computers. They've still not told us whether, because my sources are telling me, and I believe them, that the FBI took his phones as well and downloaded data off the phones. We know from the latest document release that somebody took his personal laptop right after the murder, and they won't disclose, the FBI won't disclose who this person is. The prosecutor assigned in the murder case says she doesn't know whether this person altered Seth's personal laptop or took data off of it. So there's a whole lot of questions, okay, that need to be asked about that personal laptop. Why was it never examined, or why was there no forensic examination of that laptop to determine whether it has been tampered with? Because that's pretty critical. The other, even more mind-blowing to me, is the fact that I think the FBI has all but admitted that they never looked at that personal laptop, kind of like Hunter Biden's laptop. They put it on a shelf until I sued them in federal court and forced them to start reviewing it for responsive documents. And so, you know, you're supposedly investigating, supposedly not investigating a murder. And it's not clear what the FBI claims they were investigating as it relates to Seth Rich. But you've got the guy's personal computer and you put it on a shelf for what, 4 or 5 years? Why is that? Because you already know what's on it. Like Hunter Biden, you already know what's on it, and you don't want the details coming out.
So I do remember reporting that they, like, I think the video itself is titled something to the fact of like, oh, it turns out that the FBI did have Seth Rich's laptop the whole time. But when something like that gets buried even by the independent media, I find it mind-boggling. And the murder of Seth Rich, the assassination of Seth Rich, what it really looks like ultimately was an assassination. It is something that even in the independent media sphere, it's almost a third rail.
Well, and that goes back to the whole lawfare campaign when they sued the Washington Times, and the Washington Times buckled under, and they sued the Fox News, and Fox News buckled under. In both cases, I pleaded with the lawyers for the Washington Times and for Fox News. Don't throw the towel in yet. Here's some questions that need to be asked. You know, you need to do discovery. You need to get these documents. You need to get the computers. You need to get the cell phones. And they wouldn't do it. And in fact, I think, well, I'll put it as a suspicion. I can't prove it yet. But my suspicion is that neither the Washington Times nor Fox News were well served by their own lawyers. And we saw that with Michael Flynn. He hired one of these big white shoe Washington, D.C. firms, and they sold him down the river until, you know, the USS Sidney Powell came in and blew everything up. God bless her. But, you know, I've discovered this in other cases, you know, and I won't go off on the details. I got a client here in Texas who is sitting in a maximum security prison because his own lawyer sold him out. And so as a lawyer for the first, you know, 3/4 of my career, I thought, oh, we're also type A, especially the litigators. We're also type A, and we're so competitive. You know, we want to beat the other side. We would never sell out our own client. Well, let me tell you, law firms sell out their own clients. They did it to Michael Flynn. And I think that some of these law firms that have represented Fox and the Washington Times didn't necessarily act in the best interest of their clients. And so just, as if you don't have enough to worry about, if you're somebody who's outside the deep state, you have to try to figure out, is your lawyer really going to protect your interests, or is he or she going to sell you out?
Yeah. And there's really not a lot of people that won't sell you out in that instance, especially, I mean, like, I give like good lawyers and litigators like you and Jared Beck and other people like so much credit, because it's like getting into all these legal battles is just like so soul crushing. And I know it's not like, I know the situation isn't related at all, but like every time I think of, like every time we get into kind of these situations, I think of like what happened to Aaron Schwartz, where like they literally drove him to death with, I mean, granted it was a prosecution, but they literally drove him to death with that. So, I mean, it's like you're kind of like taking it from all angles in this case, where you have the legal battle and then you also have just the massive smear campaign and propaganda going on that really wants to discourage people from any type of alternate thought or any type of really like transparency with this case. Because I mean, you know, and it's something that even I don't talk about a lot. Like this case with Seth Rich is really huger than so much people give it credit for. And I mean, it's, yeah.
Well, and people do get targeted, and I can't divulge any of the details, but you know, there are people who have been involved with this and similar stories right now. I'm thinking of one in particular where there is a smear campaign ongoing, and we've now traced one of the sources to a front company for the CIA, and you know. And that's why I'm doing all these FOIAs on the domestic activities of the CIA. You know, probably remember the Church Committee back in the 70s. I was too young to actually remember it, but I've studied it. You know, where they went after all these nefarious activities and domestic activities of the CIA. Ain't nothing changed. They've just gotten better at it. That's all.
I have that conversation far too often, especially with people who were I wasn't born yet, despite what Glory will say.
I thought you were like 20 by then. I
didn't come along for a couple of years after the Church Committee. But for people who were alive then, you know, on the front page of every paper, it detailed CIA's domestic operations, and in the ensuing 45 years, 46 years, something like that, the technology has gotten better. The transparency has gotten impossibly more non-existent. Both the size and budget of not just three-letter agencies, but government in general, regardless of what letter is next to the name of the person in office, has ballooned. And we're supposed to just, on faith, Ty, believe that the agencies that were doing this stopped because George H.W. Bush got put in charge of it. George H.W. Bush and Bill Barr were assigned to clean up the CIA.
Right.
I want everyone to take as much time as you need to laugh about that. Like, it's okay. It's okay. But I mean,
and if I may, if I could say to all the MAGA people out there and Trump supporters, the biggest blunder Trump made was putting Bill Barr in there. Bill Barr sold out the whole he was in there to do cover and protect the deep state, and that's exactly what he did. Bill Barr protected the deep state right under Trump's nose.
He's been the cleanup crew since the 70s. Bill Barr started as a CIA attorney specifically to run cover for an interference during the Church Committee. Part and parcel of the Iran-Contra affair. Like, he is the deep state, the cleanup crew, the permanent state, whatever you want to call them. Like, it did. Elliot Abrams was there. John Bolton was there. Like, the neocons have been and continue to, in the Biden administration, run the show. I mean, we've had extended conversations with Whitney Webb about this, but like, we are seeing the PNAC document from 1999, the new Pearl Harbor. We're seeing not just the predictions come to fruition, but we're seeing the same key players still holding positions of power and influence, regardless, again, of administration.
Yep.
Well, it goes back to Eisenhower and the military-industrial complex, which we now call the deep state. It's all the same thing, and it's basically operated unchecked, since World War II at least.
And tremendously funded, and we've adopted Ray McGovern's extended acronym for that, which is the Mickey Mat. Glory.
It's the Military Industrial Congressional Intelligence Media Academia Think Tank Complex. So it's like the military industrial complex, but with the accompanying propaganda arm, because that's so integral to that and the narrative management around every issue now.
Right. And they have people like Anderson Cooper that they put in media, the CIA puts people like that. He's a former employee of the CIA. I mean, they've got their people everywhere.
Smith-Mundt, with the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, they don't even need an Anderson Cooper anymore, because they can just have John Brennan come right on as a paid contributor.
Right.
Since 2012.
Right.
I mean, they cut out the middleman entirely. Like, I mean, sure, it's probably worth it to go, twist the arm or influence or run as useful idiots the staff of any number of journalistic outlets, and that happens. I mean, look at The Intercept, like, arguably founded as a honey trap for whistleblowers.
Right.
Whether or not Greenwald knew anything about it, or Poitras knew anything about it, or Scahill knew anything about it, I'm not going to speculate on at all. I've got no evidence towards that. But Piero Midyar, undoubtedly, on record, has worked with intelligence, has funded color revolutions, has made sure that CIA cutout NGOs get to operate with impunity, and you can't ignore anything like that. That's just that.
You can, but of PayPal, the owner of PayPal, where you literally can't send money that has a message with Cuba or Syria or Palestine written into it, or like PayPal, which freaking barred whole ass donations to WikiLeaks almost a decade ago now. Like, that's the guy's outlet that we're gonna trust with whistleblowers. Yeah, it's just.
I wanted, because we brought in the Mickey Mat into this, I wanted to ask you about the influence in academia that the white shoe law firms would have if they're going to be recruiting for sake of protection for their continued existence rather than in the interest of their client. Is this something that, like, law firm headhunters are going to try and find in a I guess, first year law school grad?
I don't think so. I think it happens naturally. I think there's enough self-interest out there. When I was at law school, we were early in my career, we referred to it as the Golden Handcuffs, where if you go to work for a giant law firm and all of a sudden for the first time in your life, you're making $200,000 or $300,000 and $4 or $5 each year, 100,000, and you're making these boatloads of money, and it's a totally new, flashy lifestyle. And do you want to throw that away? I mean, so most people are just going to say, hey, if we're going to keep AOL, Time Warner happy, if we're going to keep Coke, Delta, if we're going to keep these corporations happy, this is what we got to do. And so people just naturally funnel into that and just keep serving the status quo. And the funny part of it is that, as I mentioned, I'm somewhere between conservative and libertarian. When I was in law school, all these, fight the power, supposedly very liberal, very progressive people, a lot of those went into the pipeline. And now they are hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
They're bought out by the corporations.
Yep.
They're gonna tell the party line.
Angela motherfucking Davis. Yeah, I had to. I had to say it.
About to make Gloria upset here. But no, you're so right.
And Noam Chomsky.
Yeah, we refer to the progressives as neoliberals in training wheels. And
I refer to them as Marxists, but hey, whatever works.
Yeah.
You know what? A campus Marxist is going to flip on whatever those principles are as soon as they got to pay rent for the first time in their lives. Like, you're going to find someone who espouses whatever, like, I don't know, whatever's Das Kapital that they've got, while taking the $125,000 a year job to go be a junior level corporate attorney. Like, the idea that at any point actual workers are going to have the means of production has never entered into a thought in those guys' heads. That's what authoritarianism across the board, regardless of shape of hat or color of uniform, in my opinion, should be resisted. And it doesn't matter if it's wearing a blue tie or a red tie or whatever. I'm gonna push back on that. I think it's been a very direct, very intentional, very nefarious weaponization of like leftist concepts in general by our three-letter agencies. In fact, they've actually produced a fair amount of published, readable, digestible material on it. So when you get shit like that, to me, it's I don't know, it kind of leads to unnecessary division if you're pushing back against authoritarianism to put a team to attach a team to it, especially when 99% of the time these idiots have no idea what the hell their team is talking about anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I don't know.
Well, money. The late Rush Limbaugh, of all people, used to say that one of the most misunderstood things about liberals is people think they don't care about money. And he said they love money, and that's exactly what happened to some of these classmates of mine. Yeah, they're all for stand at the barricades, down with the system, yada yada. But hey, if they can drive a nice car and live in a fancy house and send their kids to private school, and that's what they're going to do.
Right.
A lot of them. Yeah.
Right. That's what I tell a lot of people who, and money, of course, is only an aspect of getting power and, staying there and, quote, selling out. But I mean, there's so many people that are like, quote, thought leaders in the liberal space that I would be interested to see what would happen if, hundreds of thousands of dollars of money came their way. Would they still be doing or acting the same way? It's reasonable to question that. People are going to be people. So that's a good point you bring up.
Well, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to provide for your family, with wanting to pay your bills, with wanting to do work and be proud of the work that you've done. And I think that a lot of times that gets lost in the sauce when you're dealing with especially campus, like academia Marxists and Marxist-Leninists. Very little will make me want to jump up and chokeslam somebody outside of that, except for the complete and total wholesale selling out of punk rock musicians when it comes to the coronavirus and the DNC. But
Here we go again.
I'm reining it back. Dude. I'm holding it back. I'm not going to. This gentleman just came here from church. I'm going to try and be respectful. I am.
Yeah. Come on.
However, I'll have words for Jello by after on the afternoon rock thing. I will. But it's so disappointing. It is to watch people who used to be like, the last person you should trust is the government. Go, hey, you know who's right about this? Not just the government, but the corporations that have been sued multiple times for not giving a damn about you as the customer. That's who we need to listen to on this one.
And who also have subsidies from that government.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
All right.
You brought up Ty, and then we can let you get out of here. But you
Yes,
brought up,
unfortunately, I've got to fly back to New York where they still believe all that propaganda. They'll probably start making me wear a mask again.
Oh yeah.
I'm coming to you from Santa Cruz County, California. Like, we haven't even got our freaking mask ban lifted yet. That doesn't happen until the 15th.
It's crazy. Yeah, been no masks in Texas. Haven't been for weeks. It's wonderful.
I'm in Illinois. People have dropped them in Chicago, which is odd. It's very odd. I didn't see that coming.
When I go to protest down here in Miami, like, I'm not seeing that many people wearing them. I'm like, yo, like, yay.
Yeah. Encouraging.
Glory's coming to us from the heart of Debbie Wasserman Schultz territory.
Oh.
We do pray for her. We do.
Well, give her my regards and tell her to give my regards to the Awant as well.
Right.
Okay, it's pretty rough out here in Illinois too. Okay.
You
but I mean, Seth Rich, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's like,
yeah, there's a connection there. There's a connection.
Yeah.
And the connection that you mentioned with the Owan brothers is absolutely fascinating. And I jotted that down. That's something that I'd like to explore a little bit more. Well, Ty, if you've got to get out of here, please let people know where they can find your work. If you got things that you want to direct people's attention to or support that they need to lend, please let them know. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Please come back if you ever want. You're invited back on anytime. And we're going to
got some new redactions for us,
right? and we're going to stay on the Seth Rich case as we have been. So again, thank you.
Awesome. Hey, great. Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And y'all, we are going to
what happened? You died for a second. Repeat that.
Oh, phew. I thought it was me.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, there it goes again.
Oh. Okay. While Steve's internet is figuring itself out, I do want to go on that culture rant though, because it really is disgusting how, like, not only, the language of liberation, but how, like, culture itself is literally being co-opted before our eyes to serve this greater, like, this to serve the whole agenda of the Mickey Mat, of like every fuckwad you can imagine, because it's literally like, it's been going on. We saw with the vaccine agenda how they're literally going to put like fucking plants into barbershops to help try and promote this vaccine, how they're literally having rappers coming out and promote these damn masks, how they're literally having all kinds of like cultural icons coming out and, endorse like the Democrats. And then, you know what it eventually gets to? It gets to shit like this, where you have the UN trying to co-opt culture as a catalyst for transformation, as a way to spearhead the fourth industrial revolution, for a new social contract. Are you kidding me? An emphasis on culture, heritage, and shared values can help overcome disruption due to COVID and foster peaceful and sustainable development for your little Western imperialists. Oh, where's my favorite one? Oh, we can have an African cultural renaissance, the spirit of Pan-Africanism tapping into Africa's deep well of rich heritage and culture to ensure that our destiny is built and owned by us. And what can we use it for? As a trigger of sustainable development. Because that's where this ends up. You end up with all these fucks who want to advance their own agendas onto places in the global south, onto Black and brown communities, onto the rest of the world that isn't a bunch of corporate fuckwads. And how do they use it? They infiltrate your very culture itself. So now, because of that, you get two sides of the PSYOP coin, where now every association with that culture is suddenly a bad thing because it's been co-opted, and then you can't even enthusiastically get with that culture because it's been co-opted. Like Pan-Africanism, that is something that has a rich history of anti-imperialism, of trying to stand up to the fucking empire, and now it's going to be used by Western institutions to promote the fourth industrial revolution and Great Reset agenda. And now what's going to happen about that is now Pan-Africanism is going to gain a whole new stigma from people, from well-meaning people who want to resist that agenda. But because, they're using Pan-Africanism, no, now we can't touch it. Now there's a whole new fight to take back our culture. Like what Steve said, there's going to be a whole fight to take back punk rock. There's going to be a whole fight to take back Pan-Africanism, to take back all kinds of facets of our culture that literally helped us resist the very system trying to kill us. And now it's going to be taken control of. So now so many people are going to leave it, and that fact is soul crushing. But no, we have to take it back. But that's a whole fight in itself. Alongside resisting the system, we're going to have to take back the culture that the system is trying to co-opt, and that fact infuriates me. Hence why I just went on the whole ass rant about it. Whew.
Well, and there's a number of clips of Klaus Schwab flat out saying the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution means a redefinition of the social contract. It means sustainable development. If you're aware of what their phraseology is and what the end goals are, because they've taken the time to lay them out for you to read, put it on the title of a book and everything.
Not even a book, a free PDF that you can find in 2 seconds with a Google search.
Yeah, there's both.
Right.
So any kind of medium you want, they've got it.
Right. And by the way, I'll probably tell that story on the Rock Fence show. But I did get Quinn dropped a clip in the Slow News Day Discord of a YouTuber being asked to comment on the Great Reset, and it was one of the most fucking pathetic things I have seen in a very long time, and so we may end up talking about that, but I would like to read off some of the super rays that have come in.
Before the super rays come in, we did get a super chat from the resident wizard of the chat and OG Mod Gang in the house. We got men like Rob Juno. He says, free speech is the best, but coffee needs paying for too, man. We love you, Rob, and thank you for the super chat. It's always appreciated on Slow News Day. I'll always give a jingle for Rob. I have to.
Jingle.
Shadow Band Refugee says popcorn check, tinfoil hat check, VPN check, Bernie shirt in the trash, doused in lighter fluid with match in hand. No, I'm not a cuck. I burned that shirt in 2016. Bucket to catch liberal tears. Check. Thank you very much, brother. No offense. Thank you. Convo couch. Much love. Pasta, because it's signed. When it comes to elections or Seth Rich, if I hear that statement, there is no evidence one more time, I'm going to jump off a cliff. Love you guys. Thanks to Ty. Don't jump off a cliff, Pasta. Don't. And Shadowban Refugee again. My chick just walked in and said, Steve looks like Vermin Supreme.
I see it.
A little bit.
Oh my god, do you have a boot you can put on your head?
Love his art. I do. I love his art.
Oh my god, can you put a boot on your head?
No.
But thank you for the super raise on Rockfin people.
Orthodox vermin. He says, Orthodox Vermin Supreme.
Well, thanks for that insightful comment, Chef. Yes, Sleepy, it's always appreciated.
Wow, dude.
Ali, do you have any culture rants you want to go on?
No, I just have annoying audio issues, frankly, so I'm just listening.
I mean, annoying culture rant. I would like to.
Sure, if you want it. Just I don't want it to echo. So is it echoing still?
Doesn't echo when you talk.
Okay.
No, if you're talking, it's fine when you're. If you're talking, it doesn't seem to pick up the other people.
Okay. That's really all I wanted to know. You kind of actually, Glory, mentioned a lot of the culture rants that I wanted to talk about, which is that every time that people think it's going to be some kind of new fad or whatever, and they're like, oh, this is really going to work this time. It's like the same pattern every time. They always get co-opted. I think most people now at this point just want to know, how do you get past that? Like, how do you not let some kind of movement or language or culture get co-opted? I think that's the trickier part.
Yeah, I think the battle that I have a lot, like, with myself is like which stuff is like what's worth trying to take back and what's worth letting go. Like something like Black Lives Matter is like, at this point, like, I want to take it back with all my heart, but it's like at this point it would be much easier on a lot of people to just let it go. Or even, and like now you see kind of the language of liberation, like liberation going that way as well. Like I think it's something, like I think that language is still something that can be taken back, but it's very much like slipping day by day into, people using like liberation to advance their own partisan agendas or product placement or something like that.
That's really all you see now.
So there's a couple of clips that I want to play, but there's also this clip. So we're gonna do the short clip of Cy Hirsch talking about the DNC leaks, and by short clip I mean like it's 6 minutes. I'm gonna play some of it. There was somebody in the YouTube chat asking for it, so I will drop that in the YouTube chat right meow after my fucking laptop catches up and mutes.
Oh, Steve.
There we go. That's handled. And now that's handled. And we can go back over here. I got a handful of clips that I would like to play, and in about 10 or 15 minutes we'll open up the phones for a little bit. And audio. There we go. A lot of.
I'll tell you what I know. What I know comes off an FBI report. Don't ask me how you could figure out. I've been around long enough. The kid gets. I don't think he was murdered. I don't think he was murdered because of what he knew. The kid's a nice boy, 27. He was not an IT expert, but he learned stuff. He was a data programmer, but he learned stuff. And so he's living on one street. He's living in a very rough neighborhood. And in the exact area where he bid, there's been about 10. I'm sure you know this.
So we went to that neighborhood. It was not rough. It was very well lit. There were cameras multiple places. But
there's about 8 or 9 or 10 violent stuff. They're not robberies. Most of them with somebody brandishing a gun. And the kid's hands, I'm telling you, but I'm sure you know, his hands were marked up. The cops concluded he fought off the people, tried to run, and they shot him twice in the back with a 22, small caliber. And then the kids that did it ran. They got scared, didn't take his wallet. Okay, so what the cops do then, and here's what nobody knows, what I'm telling you. Now, maybe you know something about it. When you have a death like that, DC cops, if you're dead, you generally don't just go. You have to find out what's going on. You have to get to the kid's apartment and see what you can find. If he's dead, you don't need a warrant. But most cops get a warrant because they don't know if the guy has a roommate. You need a warrant, so they get a warrant. I'm just telling you, there is such a thing. They go in the house and they can't do much with his computer, his password. The cops don't know much about it. So the DC cops, they have a cyber unit in DC, and they're more sophisticated. They come and look at it. The idea is maybe he's had a series of exchanges with somebody who says, I'm going to kill you.
Okay. I'm going to stop it there for a minute. Because this audio came out August 1st of 2017 is when it leaked. And again, the full 22-minute conversation that Butowsky released is in the Slow News Day playlists. So if you go to, I think the podcast section or full podcast section, which is not updated at all. It's on there, 22 minutes long. But here in 2017, we've got confirmation that yes, in fact, the FBI had possession of Seth Rich's computers, had gone through it, were actively in the process of going through it. They spent the next several years denying this. When they finally, because of the gentleman that we were just speaking to, had to admit, yeah, as a matter of fact, we did, that story was buried as immediately as it possibly could be. As Ty was talking about, they had sued successfully into submission major news outlets. It's just folks like us. So if you like what we do, think about supporting the show. Thank you to the people that have and continue to do. I'm gonna have to put out a GoFundMe here shortly so that I can cover all of the West Coast leg of the Home Run for Julian tour. It's not gonna be that much, but I have to fucking at least travel and eat. What do you guys think? Like, how have you heard the Hirsch audio before? Is this new to you, or have you heard it for a while?
That was new to me. I'm waiting to get a text back from my dad. I really want to know what he's thinking right now about all of this.
Big shout out to Allie's dad, who was in the audience today.
Woo,
Awesome.
Mr. Alexandra.
Oh, that's funny. More to come on that.
I hope you continue to listen to the show. I do.
He will. I think he will. He's been. My political journey has confused, probably at times frightened my poor father, but I get a lot of this from him, which is ironic. So.
Is your dad a native Hoosier?
He is. He
All right.
is.
All right.
Yes, he is. So I'll be interested to hear what he thinks of all of this. I think he sent it to a few of his friends too. I don't know how much they're gonna like this because there are a couple of them that are super vote blue, no matter who. So they probably didn't love. They heard, but it needs to be heard.
They would love my Aunt Carol.
Oh well, let me tell you that friends of Mr. Alexander.
He was an Indiana Teacher of the Year.
Oh, they would.
Friends of Mr.
Alexandra.
Alexandra, just loosen up a bit. I'm not sure why you vote blue no matter who, but if it's for virtue signaling purposes, then I'm just gonna go out on a whim based on like pure statistics and probability and say that I probably beat you in identity politics bingo. So you can let go of some of the virtue signaling right there. And listen, I'm saying this. I'm trying to be nice about this here, okay? But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I did. Hope y'all learned something, because I did. I didn't even know about the stuff about the whole angle of the Pakistani intelligence. That was interesting.
That's interesting.
Well, the Awan brothers is something we should definitely revisit because that was huge, and it got memory hold. I don't want to jump all over the place here because I don't want to play a 6.5 minute clip. I really don't.
You don't want to pull a Commander X?
No. My God. Big shout out to Commander X, though. So Jason Burmis got himself suspended from YouTube again for a week. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube to stop.
Okay. In honor of Jason, I'm going to do my best Burmis impression. Rockfin.
ROKFIN.com and then /Slow News Day and hit the follow. If you're so inclined, endorse the channel. It's $9.99 a month. You get all of the paywalled content on the network by supporting us. We kind of need that. We do. For my edification, I'm gonna do this. And
what are you? Oh, I know what's coming.
You're going on the Jello rant?
No, he's gonna play the old hippie clip or whatever it is.
Okay.
I fucking love this thing. I do. But a couple of clips that I do want to play. Here, start it.
Hit it. Show them, girl. Yeah. Boom. Bow.
Boomer. I love it. Oh my God.
Much joy.
Just rocking out in my chair.
Oh my God, it gives me so much joy.
Might be the most boomer
really
thing
does,
you've
though.
done
He
all
was
week,
playing
Steve.
it over and over again last night. It's true.
What?
Dude, it does bring you a lot of joy.
It's fucking hilarious.
No, I love it. I love that
Dad.
you found this. Like you need
Show the arrest Newsom graffiti.
Oh yeah.
You got to scroll up a bit. Yeah, boy.
That's on the 405. Going into Los Angeles,
nice.
The arrest Newsom. Uncle Bob, I'm sorry, but yes, the regional colloquialism is the 405. You could be angry about it. You can't. It's okay. It is.
Oh, and I actually know. I remember a couple months ago too. I think it was on 110. I think it was 110. The one that's around downtown, but like as you pass downtown and as you're going into Pasadena, it was that one. And I saw Recall Newsom, or his real name, McFuckass. Right. I saw a Recall Newsom painted on there too. So yeah, it's going around. Like there's a nice population of Recall McFuckass organizers in LA, and they're always pretty cool to talk to in general.
McFuckass. Sorry,
yeah, that's his real name.
So we're gonna open the phones at the end of this clip. And we'll bring up the number here in a minute, but huge shout out to Del Bigtree and the High Wire. Would love to talk to Dell again. This is Dr. Richard Fleming, preventative and nuclear cardiologist. This is flipping important, in my opinion.
This virus is a man-made gain-of-function virus paid for by U.S. taxpayers' dollars, including monies that came from the Department of Defense. This is a bioweapon by every definition. And by every definition, their having developed this is a violation of the Biological Weapons Convention Treaty. Dr. Mengele right now is rolling over in his grave, wondering why he could not have the capacity to do this type of human manipulation. And right now, this vaccine rollout is the largest research project conducted in the history of mankind. You are either part of the experimental group or part of the control group.
I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to go around the room and see what you guys think first. I just froze up again. Okay, there we go. Jones?
I just know that the moment that he made the reference to
Mengele?
Mengele, aka the Angel of Death, I know that's like the moment that you throw out anything remotely connected to the Nazis and trying to compare it to something in the modern day is when it gets chucked into the conspiracy and the anti-Semitic realm, which is just like, why? You're like, by barring like, listen, I get it. Sometimes it is an overreaction, and in some instances, like, it is an overreaction to be comparing something to what the Nazis made people do. But also, like, you can't really, as awful as it was, what was done by, the Third Reich and the Nazis, if we treat it like some one-off thing and bar anyone from ever comparing any current events to the actions committed, then you kind of then you run the risk of having the very same thing happen again, because that's we have to be able to learn from history and recognize when something like that happens again. That's just like a whole nother angle I took on it, honestly, because there's comparisons to be had with the human experimentation and eugenesis being linked to the COVID agenda, but then it also has, you can also take that whole angle from the Israeli side of things, where hey, they're requiring Palestinians have extra documentation and papers to be able to move around their land. What does that sound like to you guys?
Democracy.
Democracy.
I'm getting to that clip. I am. I'm gonna play that clip, Josh.
You got
that one. Nice.
Gain of function research is experimentation. I don't think that's talked about enough. That's something I'm personally really interested in reading more about. I just saw this clip too of Fauci talking about how funding gain of function experiments is it's more beneficial in the long run. I just keep going back to something, just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's really my biggest thought when it comes to gain of function. I don't know. I'm not seeing a ton of people in our space talk about it. There's a few, but I think there could be a lot more. I almost said the left, but it's not just the left. So
big shout out to Amber King, because she talks about this a lot.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Amber and Franklin, we love you too.
We'll finish out the clip, but just the concept that no matter what, we're in this experiment, either as a control group or a test group.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Sorry, really quick.
Pretty fucking heavy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's just it's scary. Which group is ultimately at the end of all of this? I don't know. Is gonna be more fucked. You would think it's the control group that's actually going to come out better. I don't know, man. This whole shit, all of it freaks me out. It's totally a bioweapon, though.
Anybody to be forcing or coercing anybody to take this vaccine, when if you look at the numbers on these vaccines, they do not statistically reduce your risk of coming down with a diagnosis of COVID or killing you. When you go through the EUA documents, you will find that those are the people who do not get diagnosed, and there is no statistically significant.
So this thing is crazy, all right? Because how often did people not develop the Rona? So the top number, right, is after the 7 days. The bottom number is after the second dose. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this one out because you've got jab and no jab. And it's like almost identical the entire way through of people who did not develop the Rona, if they took it or if they didn't take it. It doesn't prevent you from getting the Rona. It's not a vaccine.
Significant difference for the people who got the Pfizer vaccine versus people who didn't get vaccinated at 7 days, for the people who got the Moderna vaccine and who didn't at 14 days, and for the Janssen group at 14 days, there was a slight difference, but by 28 days, that difference was gone, and there's no difference in deaths. And in fact, the Janssen data is based upon the incorrect data if you read through the EUA, because if you go to the following table, you will...
The EUA being the emergency use
authorization
with it, which again, not approval. Not approval. Emergency use is authorized, not approved.
Find out that the numbers that they use to get approval are not the centrally confirmed lab numbers. They use the peripheral labs, but those numbers were not confirmed by the central core lab, which is what you do when you have a research project. A central place that says yes, no. The central core numbers don't even show benefit at 14 days. This is a biological weapon.
And just real quick too, like if this vaccine doesn't actually stop vaccine doesn't actually stop the spread of COVID, it just makes your symptoms worse, then like shouldn't it be like a purely personal choice? Because I mean, if we're going by, their logic that the experimental, if we're going by what it really is, that it's not a vaccine, it's just an experimental drug that's supposed to help lessen the symptoms of COVID, then it should be an entire personal choice, because it's like, I don't know. There's just so much bullfuckery here. Like,
they want as many people in this as possible. That's why, of course, it should be a personal choice, but
yeah,
not up to
as
it.
the French say, there's a lot of shit fuckery going on.
Shit fuckery.
Like, if it really doesn't, like, if me getting the jab won't actually stop someone else from won't actually stop me spreading COVID from to other people, then like, why should I get it?
Well, that's the fun of it. You get to be part of the bigger experiment, That's the whole fun of it. Yeah, it's psychotic.
Like, oh, well, your symptoms are, and even if people like want to accept that point, they're like, oh, well, your symptoms are going to be a lot less. Yay! Okay, I can do that by taking freaking vitamin C gummies every morning.
Right.
I can do that if I just take, like, if I get out in the sun and get some vitamin D, if I take some damn zinc supplements or some shit, like.
Oh, that's just some conspiracy. Don't be crazy. Listen to the science. Well, yeah.
But that's the science.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Jesu.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Hey,
wanna open up
Sleepy,
the
are
lines?
you back?
Yeah, I just said sheets fuckery.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he said she
You did-
fuckery.
okay. Do you want to open the phone here?
Yeah, that's right.
Couple of calls
It's
and
ready to go.
Sheet fuckery.
No
sheet
bullshit
fuckery.
today, people.
Yeah,
Right?
none of that shit today. Thanks.
Right. So 657-298-4767. Give us a ring. Let us know what you thought about Ty Clevenger, what he had to say. If you have any questions.
Oh, we're getting a call.
Hello.
Hola,
Hello.
¿quién es? Hello.
Hello?
Hey there.
Hello.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Am I on the air already?
Yep.
Yes, you
No
are.
kidding. I love you. Thank you. I'm just calling to let y'all know that I'm able to make words again. I can make
Oh, wow.
words.
Oh, I know that voice.
Yes, Rob.
We love you, Rob.
Resident wizard Rob Juno. It is good to hear your voice, my friend.
I have graduated to the point where I can put words together with my mouth.
Nice.
Yes, Rob. That's so good to hear.
For the people who may be confused about this, Rob has had a long recovery process, and we are very, very pleased to be hearing his voice again. This is fantastic. I'm grateful that you called in.
I am too, and I've been paying attention and watching you guys and getting all excited and tickled. I'm just raring to go. As soon as they break my chain, I'm out into the road and protesting again.
Awesome.
Yes,
That's fantastic
Rob.
news, brother. That is. I'm glad I heard that.
Yeah, I'm glad you called in.
Yeah, you don't even sound any different, Rob. That's
Mr.
awesome.
Rob. I love you all. I love you all. I can't even tell you how much I love you all. You're awesome. You're keeping me alive, man. You guys are keeping me alive. Anyway,
Well,
that's
thank
all
you.
I really
Rob. That
wanted
means a
to
lot.
say. I'm allowed to speak again, so I'm going to be doing a lot of it. Bye for now. Love to
Good.
everybody.
Rob.
Love you,
Yes, Rob. Woohoo.
Okay.
All right, I'm grabbing the next one.
All right.
Aw,
We're
that made me
live.
so happy.
That warmed my heart.
Oh, accidentally.
This is Vladimir Putin Daddy. I wanted to say that I am very, very pleased with content of show today. You take scent off of my track from FBI, CIA. Very pleased with content. Keep your show up. And also, the checks are coming.
Very good, very good. Good to hear from you.
Hey,
Good,
thanks,
Miles,
Vlad.
bro.
Thanks, Vlad, man.
You keep it up, okay? Good
Appreciate it,
And
Vlad.
you keep using my name as Vladimir Putin Daddy because I am Daddy.
Okay.
Здравствуйте.
Sounds good. Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. 'Cause my actual father's almost listening. Oh my God.
Nastasia, and
Yes,
also
yes.
I wanted to say to Vermin Supreme, you have full support of Russian government when you want to run for office next presidential election.
Okay, because Vermin Supreme was tragically underfunded. So if that campaign could get a little bit of the big Vladdy Daddy loving,
Vladdy Daddy.
that
Vladdy
would
Daddy.
be incredibly beneficial.
You have full support of KGB, Spetsnaz, and all Russian Federation, Mr. Orthodox Vermin Supreme, and also Orale!
Orale!
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Fuck yeah.
That was amazing.
I love that guy.
That's good stuff. I would have played that clip real quick though of the gentleman breaking down democracy.
I just set this one to Steve because it's kind of offensive, but like, God, it's.
I full responsibility. Come at me.
Oh god.
Let's go ahead and full screen this guy here.
Delivery is great.
Democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded. So let us say government by the retarded, for the retarded, of the retarded.
Oh my god.
Because
The delivery, dude.
That's so true, though.
The delivery was spot on. Just everything. It encompasses
That's
everything.
because there's so many times where I'm like, oh yeah, man, like the people should have a say in this, but the people are stupid as fuck. So.
Right. Like, should they? Kidding, but right.
My dude doesn't even waggle an eyebrow.
No, nothing.
Prove
There's no
that.
need with delivery like that. There's no need for anything else. It's just the message speaks for itself. Just the absolute blank face.
Just right though.
Is he wrong? Is he wrong?
I want that weed.
Also that.
Like, how many millions of people voted for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden? Like, I love it when people are always like, oh, well, you know, I mean, like, man, bro, like, I still have some faith in this country because Hillary won the popular vote. And it's like, excuse me?
Yeah, wait,
no,
what?
that just proves my point that people are stupid.
That was like this couple I ran into, I don't know, like a few weeks ago, and they were like, well, you know, 2020 was that, but 2021, we're here. We're on the up and up. And I'm like, uh-huh. How? Oh, Biden. We have Biden in office. Okay. Sounds good.
Hey, look, I can spend another 6 years not seeing a doctor. Woohoo!
Hey, yay, just got fucking batoned by some cops under Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Things are on the up and up, right? Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, man, really on the up and up, bro. Hey, I ain't got another stimulus check, but I mean, shit, we on the up and up. Like,
Yeah, life's on
it's
the
not
up
like
and
there's
up.
it's not like there's a racist in the White House or anything.
I'm trying not to be homeless. Yay!
Things are good.
So we will take like another one or two more calls, and then we'll go ahead and wrap for this show. Please join us at 3 on the West Coast, 6 on the East Coast. Mark Steves from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy will be back with us on the show. That'll be hella fun. There's not going to be a Union of the Unwanted tomorrow because it's Memorial Day. Everybody's a couple of the people have some shit to do, so that's not going to happen. It'll be pushed back to the following week. Let's see who's on.
I was thinking
Greg
about
Pausch
Mark
is on this
Steves.
Thursday. Go ahead.
I was thinking about Mark Steves yesterday though, because like, you know, since the Pentagon just started openly talking about UFOs, like the History Channel's been showing a bunch of alien stuff. So like they were showing like, you know, how heavy like the stones of like the pyramids and the Western Wall are, and they're like, no way could like average humans back in the day do this. Like, look how much it takes now to even build like stones half that size. And I'm like, ooh, you know what? That kind of got me thinking about that whole Tartaria thing. And I was like, ooh, yo, okay.
We're definitely going to go in on some Tartaria here this afternoon. 100%.
Yay.
I look forward to that. Was there another clip that I'm trying to think if I had another clip I wanted to play, but now I'm pissed off at my laptop. So fuck it. There we go.
Well, I guess I guess while we're in the intermission here, I'll plug stuff now before I forget. But June 6th, a week from now in Miami, John Shipton and Gabriel Shipton, as part of their home run tour, their first stop will be in Miami. So if you are anywhere near South Florida, and you want to come down and hear the Shipton speak, please do that. Come and meet them, even if like we can't fit everyone, then I'm sorry, but like just come and meet them and we can talk and we can make some noise and raise hell.
Right on. Everything's in Florida these days. They're coming to Chicago. It's June 17th and 18th, I believe. Is that what you said, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. Plug that later as it gets closer to that.
Well, no, I mean, and to that point, Denver, Colorado, the 23rd of June, and then Portland, Oregon, believe the 24th or the 25th. And I would like to be able to go and cover that, and then 2 days in San Francisco and then 2 days in LA. And that wraps up the West Coast leg of the tour. Then they go back to DC for a day to deliver the next day to, I believe, deliver a petition. Like to go to that too, but I don't know. We'll see. That would be fantastic because that could be a whole last day of action. And then 2 days later is Julian's birthday. The following day is the 4th of July. So we're going to be planning events around that. Definitely look for an announcement on that soon-ish.
I mean, we're talking about it. We're definitely talking about it. I've said like out in the open now that like I really want to kind of like not co-opt the 4th of July, but like show people like a real Independence Day. And like to do that, we celebrate actual independent people, like obviously Julian and other, freedom fighters, like some of the information activists, or like Jeremy Hammond, or like, maybe even like Free Mumia, or just other political prisoners, and like independent thought in general. And yeah,
like celebrate co-opt the holiday that is. Think about why it's there from the beginning. I think that's a good idea.
Matthew Dorr, thank you for the Super Ray. Appreciate it.
It's always appreciated.
Michael Zach says, can someone please show us the first photograph of a dead or stricken on the street Seth Rich? No, but
no.
I don't know. I mean, again, when Action for Assange went to DC for the first time in January or February of 2020 for the first round of Julian Assange's rendition hearing, we did candlelight action on the street corner where Seth Rich was murdered.
And they put that picture up on Fox News when Andrew was on with Tucker Carlson.
Because we had spelled out his name was Seth Rich in candles. It was technically across the street, but we, it was that
you can't tell from the picture though.
Yeah. But again, well-lit area, number of cameras. We at the time would imagine it's still up on our YouTube channel. We put up the map of according to City of DC, where every available camera is and was around like a 4 or 5 block radius from where Seth Rich was murdered. Zero footage from any of them. 5 years, most heavily redacted armed robbery, botched robbery in history. It would be neat if that that poor fella's family was, genuinely interested in bringing their son's murderer to justice, but I understand that they may be subjected to some pretty hectic fucking pressure.
Yeah.
By some legit fucking demons.
Which should make you think about the whole thing even further. Anyone who's listening that knows my dad, that is all. Thank you. Okay.
Probably checked out a while ago, right after.
Most likely, but
yeah.
hey, you never know.
Not before government of the retarded, definitely during. Yeah. Well, Allie, what do you got?
Shit. You just that much. I will be here later today. I'm excited to for that episode. That's all I got. Happy Sunday. How about you, Glory? Steve, what do you guys got?
Okay, I mentioned June 6th, John and Gabriel Shipton coming through Miami. Oh yes, so yesterday got to be on stream for the first time with Kendra and Nat with Commander X, as we talked about Julian Assange, and later on we were joined by Misty as well, and we did kind of like a ladies thing on Julian Assange, and yeah, it was cool. The edited version is out now on Commander X's channel, so if you have a spare 2.5 to 3 hours, then yeah, go give it a watch.
Play while you're like, I don't know.
Did he whole ass do a 4-hour show?
What?
Did he do a 4-hour for that or what?
Good Lord.
It was like 3.5.
Damn. That's rough.
It's okay, man. Like 75 minutes of it was clips.
Yeah, he does music breaks and stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. No, it's not like you're not just chained to the chair for 4 hours.
Yeah, like you can get up at some point if you have to.
For sure. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out and for tuning in. Appreciate the people who threw super chat, super raise, all that good stuff very, very much. Do subscribe to the channel on all of our alternative platforms starting in like 2 days. If YouTube determines a channel is not commercially viable, they can yank it. They can put ads and YouTube now gets to monetize anyone's content regardless of whether or not you monetize your content. So I would expect to see like annoying as shit ad breaks in like multiple spots in all of our videos coming up, even though again we haven't monetized a video on YouTube in well over a year. Rockfin, Odyssey, DLive, we have a Twitch channel. It's got like 8 fucking subscribers, but we have one.
You could be our 9th.
Anywhere but YouTube. Fuck YouTube.
Yeah.
But if you're so inclined, $9.99 a month, You get all of the paywall content on Rockfin for the one subscription. My opinion, it's a better deal than Patreon. Big shout out to Aftermath FM. I guess there were some technical difficulties on their end, so the whole stream didn't get out. But we'll figure out what's going on, and we'll be back next week. Big thanks to Ty Clevenger, and we'll definitely catch back up with him, especially as more FOIAs get answered. Regardless of capacity, this story is not going away. It's not. And thanks as always to my better than your co-hosts, Ali Alexander and Gloria Jones, Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos.
Sleepy, woo woo.
We will see you guys in about 3 hours. Good luck to us all.
Bye, guys.
Love ya.